welcome to that episode of Just More Fix. This is James. With me this episode is Lacey.
Hey.
You can find us online at justomorefix.com or on Twitter at justomorefix. If you like us, you can support us at Patreon, and you can give us a review at Apple Podcasts or wherever you find us at. In this episode, we're going to talk about Cthulhu Live inspiration. And now, it's time to get our gaming fix.
I'm Willie D. Nelson from All Things Good and Nerdy, a pop culture podcast, part of the Gonna Geek Network. Just like the show you're checking out now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other tantalizingly geeky shows at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
Welcome to Just More Fix. Only announcements that I have today is that the Hastings Party zines are in the mail to our Patreon supporters. So if you're a Patreon supporter at the level 2, get the print copy of the zine. Those went out last week, so make sure you are checking your mailbox as they will be coming out to you as soon as U.S. Postal deems worthy to get them to. So hope those go out to you guys. Hope everyone out there gets those and has some fun with those. Let us know if you guys have a good time running those and playing those, because it's a terrible adventure, and I like wicked cannibal fun. So, all right, so today we are going to talk about some Cthulhu Live inspiration. So this is a total selfish, self-serving episode, which
I feel like this episode.
True story. So for Hillcon this year, I have kind of volunteered to run a Cthulhu Live game, focusing on the Yellow King and that kind of stuff. So what I thought we might do today is break down some of the themes and experiences that we had specifically from our previous LARP experience, and then also from like set dressing stuff, from haunted house stuff, of things that we thought that were really cool. And then we're going to get into the weeds a little bit about some of the mechanisms of staffing and what it looks like to run one of these. So, and what our needs will be specifically for this game. So just a quick heads up, I think we're going to have, to give you guys some context, we're going to have, I think, between probably 8 and 10 players, probably a fair estimate, and me running the game. And then there's some debate as to what our staffing needs are going to look like. So I guess to start off with, to lay out my vision of where I want to take inspiration from, is I want to run the game in similar to fashion to what the Yellow King game was that we ran at our table, which is in a yellow Berlin. So it's the Weimar era of Berlin, so between World War I and World War II, right before the Nazis come to power and that kind of stuff. And I want to focus on themes of Babylon Berlin and like the first season of True Detectives and that sort of creepy weirdness that's happening, right? So those are my two sources of inspiration, plus obviously the Yellow King and the repair of reputations and all that kind of chamber stuff, right? Which kind of goes without saying. So I guess to start this off, what I want to do is I want to have some big sort of like, so no shit, there I was moment, right? And I'm thinking those kind of involve some cool set piece and that kind of stuff. So I don't know if you were in the scene when we had the garage set up for the sacrificial murder scene that was at the old house where we did LARP. I don't know if anybody took you in there for that or not. Okay. So for those of you that don't know this, we do haunted house stuff, and we have just accumulated a large amount of sort of odd things, props that you just sort of accumulate as time goes by. And I staged our garage with sort of like a weird ritualistic sacrifice kind of a thing happening with some red lighting and that kind of stuff that was happening in there with our haunted house stuff, basically, right? So there was one of my big swatch blocks, which is like a big wooden stump that you use for blacksmithing, with a sword stuck in the middle with Sabbat stuff happening, a Vault set on stuff. Okay.
I remember.
Okay.
It seemed to.
Yeah. No, because it was like, oh, we shouldn't show people this. And then the players were like, we should really show everybody this.
And then I felt like I was the player that didn't end up going in there. Like, really? The sheriff just deputized 4 new people and they're all going in there? What? Anyway.
So with all that, knowing what we have, knowing what our skill set is and we're capable of, are there any things that stick out in your mind from sets that we've built and that kind of stuff that would be cool to utilize, or things that stuck out to be like, whoa, that was real to do, and our given landscape that we have out here in the forest and outbuilding?
There are props that I good to pull in. First of all, I don't have like an entire box. Latex those for something.
Okay, so latex faces.
Just to give some context, we have some old CPR dummy faces.
Yeah.
So I really creepy. There you have it. But we have them, and they should be utilized for the awesome things.
We have, I think, 10 or 12 adults, and I think 8 to 10 infant masks that are like latex sculpted faces. So and they're super effective, because we had a vampire LARP where they got shipped in a crate to where the Elysium was. Someone had to get a pry bar to pry the nail up to open it up, and it was Juan that did it. And when he opened it up, he was like, oh oh my God, is this for real? What's in here? I was like, yeah, but they're real.
Also, side note, the added drama of actually physics crate.
Yes. Yeah.
I would, that's a big, even if what I've just.
Well, no, and I still have that. I still have that crate, so that was a good,
and it doesn't like any work at all to nail it shut.
No, or pry it open. Really.
And I think that like faces work really well for Yellow King specifically because you're talking about a play, so it's not that much of a stretch to have like these are faces that have been made into masks
for the play.
Well,
there's a great line in there too where they say, "Take off your mask, take off your mask." So with Casilda and Camilla, so there's a great moment there as well.
Exactly, not thing. Yeah. A ritual skull.
Yeah, we have
one of those. You printed.
Sergey, isn't that his name?
Yeah.
Right. Sergio.
There it is. I was like,
my
no,
bad.
That's not right.
I'm sorry, Sergio. Right on.
Like Jason.
I'm done with Sergio. He turned me into a ragdoll. Okay, so...
Which speaks terribles about drug addiction. So Babylon Berlin is rife with sex, drugs. Are those themes that you're going to be incorporating into the
I kind of would like
blurb?
to. I don't know exactly. See, here's my thing, just to give you a brief, another insight, because I don't want to go too much into plot here, because we're going to talk about staffing and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to dig down into the theme. Themes, yes, right? Scene, like broadly speaking, yes, but plot moments and that kind of stuff, no, not yet, not with you.
Okay, no, that's fine. I was just going to say, I remembered following Twitter called Horrors of Yore, and there was a lot of really interesting period pornography on the site.
Oh, yeah, I remember that now.
And everybody that will be attending our game is over the age of 18, and we're familiar with what kind of boundaries they have. And so I know that would be okay for our group. And
we put out a disclaimer anyway. I mean, I would, because we have a event set up for it that's private for us, would say, hey, these are going to be the things that are in there, whatever, and I already know the answer, but it would be appropriate, I think, to ask it anyway. But yeah, it's right on. So yes, it would be really cool. I don't know if you can get them, but the ampules that some medications still come in the ampules where you break the top off of them. Mm-hmm. And in Babylon Berlin, his Versed or whatever it is that he takes comes that way, where he breaks the ampules off. Now, not that we want people taking medication, but it would be kind of cool to have the ampule. But I don't know that you can get them with like saline or nothing in them or whatever. I don't know. No, but I think
we have a lot of other mysterious bottles.
What I'm thinking though is that I would like to have a prop to give to characters, because they're going to be pre-generated characters, right?
You could give them.
That would work too. But I thought it would be kind of interesting to say you have 5 of these vials, because if I could get it for a couple bucks or whatever, I would just get them, right? Because in my mind, the $2 or whatever it would be, assuming they're cheap, would be worth it to for them to break them off and have them in a little cigarette case and whatever. So is there anything else that springs to mind? So I guess we have a giant another little weird piece of trivia. We live really close to where the U.S. Army used to make all of their chemical weapons for a long, long time. And so they shut that base down since then. And we went to their auction and bought a bunch of stuff because you never know, right? So we have this giant sort of console with all these buttons and knobs and dials, right? And I feel like it's very, very much in the Lovecraft vein, but I don't know that it's in the Haster Yellow King vein to use that for something. Do you think, or no? I feel like it's more Mego-ish and that kind of stuff, and super science, not.
Okay, but you're talking about like the golden age of radio.
True.
Still, and its current location is inside a barn. Like, so you have this big wooden barn that is unassuming, and then you have this digital thing. It's also, you're talking about Nazis. I mean, all of that movement is still very underground.
Man. Yeah.
And it very much, hits the secret military base button, if that's what you're trying to set up, for sure. Especially with some of the signage you have that says like government property, trespass, and editing as well. And there's like a gas mask that give that vibe.
Right on. Okay, I hadn't even thought about it from the radio perspective, but I think you're 100% right there. Also, there's some questions about if you broadcast the Yellow King by radio, what would that do, right? There's some cool potential there. Right on. Okay. So that's a possibility then. So our coffins, yes, no?
I kind of feel like for this, no.
I agree.
It's a little less murder.
Psychological.
Right, exactly.
So, yeah, I agree. So is there anything else that comes to mind, or?
I have an oil bag. Like, that could be a very cool prop. We also have another doctor area that would...
What about our woods?
So it doesn't fit with Babylon Berlin thing.
So here is what I was kind of thinking, because I want to kind of lean on the natural geography that we have here around our house. So our house is in the middle of nowhere, and we're on top of a hill in the forest, right? Mm-hmm. And we have a large barn outbuilding on our property. So my thought is that while it would be in the Weimar era and have the Babylon Berlin themes, but it would be at a secluded, like, German hunting resort. Mm-hmm. So it would be outside the city of Berlin, right? But you'd still have all the themes themes that exist. It just wouldn't be in the hustle bustle of the city. It would be in the countryside, sort of like Sound of Music kind of a thing, you know?
Stage, maybe like the house section.
Well, I thought what I had, and this isn't going to give anything away to you, but what I had thought is that all the players will be invited to this hunting lodge for whatever the event is, and then things will grow from there, right? So that will be the premise that will draw the characters in. Okay. So there won't be any city to go to. It'll just be here at the house hunting lodge, right?
So when you think, do you have some weather? Like, what if it's... I mean, this is going on for like 4 days. Odds are it was days.
All of it, yeah. We could move some things around if we had to. Also, it's August. Right. So generally speaking, here in Indiana, we don't have crazy weather in August. So I hadn't thought of that. I'm going to write down weather question because... I
mean, it could be very atmospheric, also real life dangerous.
Yeah, yeah. But also just uncomfortable because you don't want to be standing out in the rain.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? You know, like if you had to walk from the barn to the house, it wouldn't be a big deal, right? But if you had to be out in the rain for a while, that would be no fun. So
we do woods for a lot of interesting talismans, you know, like Blair Witch, like Detective, 8,000 other things that you built out of wood and wigs.
Is it Witch with the, it was Witch with
was it just called Witch?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I agree.
Wooden witches in God's eyes thing.
Yeah. Or I just thought, like, we're really secluded and there's no light around us. Like, our forest is dark. Like, dark,
you know what
dark.
could be interesting? So think about like color out of space, right? So it would be very easy with like some spray paint and a little extra time to create a patch of area wrong the rest of.
Oh yeah.
You know, if you like spray painted things elsewhere and then brought them to the area, it's not obvious painted. The thing's just the wrong color.
Right.
Thing along could be interesting as well. You'd have to have enough light to thing, or they make black that could a splatter effect. And
we're already going to be using black lights anyway because on the game side of it, every character is going to have a little black light flashlight, and they're going to look at on when you find something you think is a clue, you can examine it, and if it has a symbol that relates to the skills you have, then it will give you information. So we'll get into that in a little bit, but
some bigger with that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go glow in the dark because I'm not to charge enough on the spot.
Well, there's some other things that we can do with batteries too, because LEDs don't take a lot of energy to run them. So we could have like things painted up and then LEDs staged.
Reflect well too.
You know, I have this vision. Do you remember the room that we had that was all black, and it had, at the time it was when Scream had came out, and it had the Scream masks that were black light painted, and then a fan that ran, and they kind of turned could very easily do something like that with just run an extension cord.
You know what else could?
What's that?
Kind of like decide which direction to walk to and don't have anything, but then like when they come out every direction, you know, that's a tree. So like I approach from the north, I don't see anything. Then all of a sudden I turn around to go back and it's just like a forest of like things staring at me.
Yeah, sort of like one way in, one way in perspective. Very cool. I like that a lot. And that could work well with those masks too, because if they're black on one side to where you can't see them as you walk in, come out, and then, or even you could do it to where when they get there, they don't really have a strong light source, but whatever they go get is a strong light source. So when they turn it on, like whether it's flashlight or lantern or whatever, right, it reflects off of all the eyes that are out. And okay, right on. Okay, so in terms of theme and tone, I already kind of mentioned some inspiration with Babylon Berlin and True Detective, and then Robert W. Chambers, right? So I don't know that I'm going to be able to, but I would like to find a way to try and play with perception time. But I don't know that that's actually feasible to do. Do you know what I'm saying? What?
I was just thinking about adjusting clocks. Like, man, if you had like Google Home set up to all your devices, that would be wicked easy.
Oh, yeah.
But it'd be like, mountain time.
Mountain time. Eastern time. Hong Kong time.
But our house is not like 8,000 clocks. So.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, that would be wicked fun. Man. Oh, wow. Well, I thought about doing some things with some speakers and Bluetooth stuff because I found that was very effective for 10 Candles when we did that. I had some sound effects that were playing kind of like where it was dark. And I think that can work really well.
You could. I mean, if you wanted time be a big feature, you could have periodic like announcements of the time. Like you could have where it's like so many dong clock play and it just plays every hour. You can adjust, like, scene ran for 5 minutes. Now all of a sudden it's 2:00 in the morning. It was like 10 to go.
Right.
The possible.
Be interesting too, because you could do it localized too, where it might only affect these 4 players. And then when they come back, they're like, wait a minute. Well, what time is it? Do you know what I'm saying? Although it would be important, would need time to be passage of time would need to be important plot at some point so that the characters have a reason to keep track of it. Right. Otherwise, it's just like, well, why is it happening? You know what I mean? It doesn't have the same effect. Right on. Okay.
So one thing that's not necessarily present frequently in other LARPs that we've done that I feel like should be a big feature of it are puzzles. So I don't know how you want to tackle that. I definitely asked the mansion game, right?
So
or like other investing in general.
So what do you think about like a puzzle box or like Like, what does that look like to you when you say puzzle?
I think a puzzle box, you have the contents out, kind of like a code to break. You could, I mean, it'd be very easy to find a journal and have to interpret for where port is. It would have to be not so difficult the players wouldn't realize that it is a puzzle. You know what I mean? Like, you can just, like, here's a regular everyday journal. Oh, there's a code in it. Every third letter is no, I mean, there have to be some kind of obvious things where.
Right. I also have the
poetry or prose, you know.
Well, I have this awesome vision in my mind. Sort of it happened at our Yellow King game is that someone was rehearsing with Kalen's character. I think he was a drama person or whatever. Yeah.
I was playing the violin for him and he was drawing. Yeah. What it was.
And so there's this moment where you don't realize what you're doing and then suddenly you do realize what you're doing. And both at a player level, because I like when you have these moments that sort of transcend the distance between player and character, right? Because you realize, oh man, the game master just walked me into this and I didn't even realize it. And now I'm here and now I get to lean into it. You know, like that revelation. And then also eventually the revelation comes across to where the character in the game would realize it. And it's like, oh no, right? So you get to go through these like several layers of revelation, right? So it's like the player realizes, wow, whether the game master intended this to happen or it's just really good improvisation or whatever. And then that realization and then the outcome of what it could be, then the character, you know, like it's just, those are great moments to have.
Visual cues can be a good slip from time too.
What do you mean?
You know what I mean? Like I just think Kalen's like mouse character. So like maybe I see that image somewhere and then I see it again later, but then I don't realize the importance of it until later and then I spend the entire time. So that's a tricky, but
yes and no, because we have a lot of really kind of cool, strange artwork as well that could just be there and, you know, we'd be like, oh, that's kind of neat, whatever, you know, and actually,
you know, like maybe I see a newspaper and see it in a journal and that like, you know, later this paper article come out and I see again somewhere else. Side note.
Right.
Oh, we have a Haster statue.
Well, that was kind of a given. Yeah, true. I forgot about him, but yeah. And I got to say that one worked really well when we were playing the Yellow King. The D6s that we had, I got whatever it was, 6 or 8 yellow sign dice from the Chessex booth at Gen Con a couple of years ago. And so whenever anybody rolled a 1, which has the yellow sign face on it, the Haster, I turned the statue on the table to face them. And I can't remember, I had in the Yellow King role-playing game, they have quick shot cards, right? So I can't remember what the effect was, but it was just a card that I gave the player. I turned the face and then they got a quick shot card. I don't think it actually had any game effect other than it just creeped the players out, which really worked really well. I was like, this is
really well. Like I just did not want it to look at me.
Yeah. So
no.
And also it was this interesting moment where it just sort of like adds this element of chaos into the game. It's just whenever anybody rolls 1, he focuses on someone else now, you know. So it was a good moment. And in a way, I don't know if anybody was, but you're sort of rooting for someone else to fail so that it will look at them, you know. But right on. So the way this works for me is that at least it worked in that vampire game this way, right? So and it sort of how the way we built some of the stranger rooms that we built in the haunted houses and stuff was, it was like, here's this list of things that I have. What can I do with this, right? And then so by looking at them, it makes me think of a climax, right? These are the things that are going to be present in the climax. What does that climax look like? And then I walk the game back from there. Does it make sense? So what's that?
Like tone and whatever.
Okay.
So you know how like in Candles when you have the person like the thing back, how it is like really powerful at that end. Right. One of the things that is funny about LARP, like all the given the same voice. So maybe one of those is in like a grainy audio recording of someone else that isn't you. You know, singing a song, reciting something, or monologuing, whatever, what have you. That interest.
Okay. So anyway, I think that's awesome. I think I'm tied that in with. So in the Cthulhu Live game, it talks about having props and all, and in the Cthulhu Live book, it talks about having props and making use of them, right? But it always stresses, which is I 100% agree with, is plot over props, right? So if your plot is good, no matter how good your props look, no one cares, right? So with that said, I agree with that sentiment 100%. But I also think if you can envision some kind of a cool climax and then do a good job walking the plot back from, you know, and then structure things that way with, you know, the conceit that if the plot doesn't work, then you've got to make some adjustments, right? So that's where I come from on this, is because the times that I think there was like 3 or 4 games for the Vampire LARP where I had structured some kind of a stage, some kind of a scene, and then went from there. And it seemed to work pretty well.
Climax the same. What? It's just what make it there intact, or
right. Or
No,
the outcome. Yeah. Do you make it there intact? Yes or no? Are you able to affect and stop or accelerate whatever it is? Because it's a LARP, so there's going to be competing factions. That's the way we structure our LARPs anyway, is that there will always be, in my mind, competing factions that maybe have some kind of alignment in what they want, but not exactly, and then some people that are completely the exact opposite of it, but never, the goal is to set it up in a way either the characters don't really have significant combat abilities or combat just isn't necessarily an option because of whatever, So, all right. Okay, so let me back this up. Now we've got like all these kind of ideas and themes and tones and some props and stages staged for me to look at and draw some inspiration from. Let's go ahead and dig into the staffing side of this. I'm going to walk you through a couple of things of what I have ideas for how the game itself will work mechanically, and then you can tell me what you think for whether I will additional staff or not, okay?
Staff.
Okay.
Like, I'm also not getting paid.
No, but I mean,
would anybody else be.
The game staff is what it is. It's
Right,
like, storytellers, whatever.
That's a word.
Okay, fine. Fair enough. Storytellers.
Staff.
Storytellers
Feels
and
so
narrators.
condescending.
Well, actually, in the Cthulhu Live book, it's interesting because they actually they refer to them that way because they have a stage manager who's like in charge of like costuming and props and all that kind of shit, which is kind of interesting.
I don't-
It's all good. Okay, either way, storytellers. So,
Is that what he...
I don't think so. Rhodey's bad. Either way. So, where was I going? Okay, so the way I'm going, there's not going to be any point spends in this game, right? You will have X amount of investigative skills, right? And just like in the Yellow King, if you have the skill, you can do the thing. You don't have any spends. I have some debate in my mind whether or not you're going to have pushes. So in Yellow King, you have 2 pushes per session. You can spend a push to do something extra, right? So if you think of those being like the point spends for when you use investigative skills in Trail of Cthulhu, right? So the way it's going to work is you're just going to have your character sheet and it's going to have a list of skills on it. When you go look at something, I'm going to get blacklight flashlights and blacklight markers. And when you go look at something and you want to examine it, you're going to take out your blacklight flashlight and you're going to shine your light on it. Okay. On your characters, you have your character sheet, and then it will have my idea is to do skill sheet. So if you have, archaeology or ancient Egyptian or whatever it is, right? You will look at the symbol. When you shine your light on the piece of paper you're examining, it will have a symbol drawn on it in blacklight marker or whatever. And then you will look to see on your sheet if you have that symbol. Then with that symbol, it will have, like a couple sentences of what the clue actually is, right?
If you have that.
Because then it becomes...
So then you don't accidentally see something.
But see, if you see the symbol and don't have it on your sheet, you won't know what the clue is. If I see it, if I can just look across the room and see that there's something written on it, then I'm going to walk around and try and see who, you actually have to take the time to, to look it over or whatever. So where I got, this isn't my idea. I got this from a LARP that Carrie and Lee played in.
How are you not a clue? I don't understand. Is it all written in black ink?
No. So
then I have to actually be present to give you clue.
No. So let's say
what's option 3?
Okay, hang on. So I have this ancient document in my hand. It's a piece of printed actual paper that has all kinds of cool stuff written on it, right? So if I'm going to examine it, I'm going to take out my blacklight flashlight and I have to shine it across it to look to see if there's actually anything written on it in blacklight, right? Once I see that, then I can compare it to the skills that I have or whatever. And so let's say it's like the anarchy symbol, right? Mm-hmm. So I look at my sheet, and if I have the anarchy symbol on there, it will have a blurb of text next to it for what that clue tells me.
Where?
On your character sheet. So you'll have your character sheet on the backside because they're all pre-generated. If you have, I'll be able to write down what clues they are and put in ones that don't mean anything, and there's not even a symbol for it in the game, maybe, right? So you can't just look at the back of your character sheet and say, oh, these are all the lists of clues in the game. What does that mean? Because there will be ones that don't actually exist anywhere, but it will have text next to them. How is it confusing? You just got to play match the symbol.
But then I have to remember which things, because I'm going to read them. That's how my brain works. Read all of them, and then I'm going to have to try and think once I forget to remember.
You don't have to, but see, at the beginning of it, we will tell everyone, not all of these exist in the game. So read them if you want. Okay, then read them. It doesn't matter.
But it does.
If you don't find it, it doesn't exist in the game then. Do you know what I'm saying? It's sort of like meta knowledge versus character knowledge.
But wouldn't it be assumed in a Cthulhu live game or any kind of Cthulhu game, if I find a weird text, that I'm going to investigate it further?
Okay, yes. But what if you don't have the skill to be able to understand what it means?
Symbol on the thing, then I will know I don't have the skill, so I don't need to look at it more, or I should find somebody who has so they can look at it, or whatever, and then I can write down clues that are relevant to me. It just feels more like finding something.
Why?
I don't know. It feels different. It feels like these are the list of clues that I could possibly find, and now that's what I'm going to look, instead of I'm just going to investigate things that I find naturally and then get the clue.
But you wouldn't find it, you have to. The other part of it is because it kind of involves some time, right? So it's like, think about if you're going to translate a text or something, right? A page. It takes time to do that, right? Whereas if I just see, look, boom, here it is. Like if you have to look for the symbol on there as well, which will take some time. So like you have to actually examine the clue. So when we go to, well, we can talk about to Lee and Carrie about, because we're going over there tomorrow, and you can ask them, because they said it worked really amazingly well. And maybe they did a better job of describing it because they kind of played it or whatever, and they said it was just really, really good and it worked really well. So, but also the idea would be is that, so whether you don't find, like maybe in the course of the game, you also don't find all the things that, you could have found or whatever, right? Or maybe both you and I have academics, right? So whether I find it or you find it, the clues are still, there, but you just may not find them all. Does it make sense? And then that way I don't have to mediate any kind of thing about what is your academics level versus what is the difficulty of this clue.
Right.
Well, in some of them there is, if you do one of the versions of Cthulhu Live, you take your stat versus the
But you're doing
difficulty.
it like the Yellow King system, right?
Yeah, correct.
So like that part.
No, I don't disagree. Yeah. So where was I going? Either way, so that's how the sort of the skill part of this is going to be laid out, right? And then I kind of mentioned, I think it was before we actually, like before the intro, we were kind of talking, with all of these characters being pre-generated, right? And they're going to have some kind of a couple paragraph blurb about their background and what their agenda is. I can kind of leverage the players already as kind of like setting them in a direction, right? Because they're going to have a background and some agenda to take care of. So in a way, they're not NPCs, but they're also, I can kind of predict in a broad fashion, this is the direction they're likely to go.
Right. Yeah. Like kind of dread.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
right. So these are the questions.
The leading questions.
Exactly.
It's like the answer is inherent in the question.
Yeah. So, and I think with that, it limits the amount of additional storytellers that I need. Do you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Because and then to give an example, maybe your character, I know built into it, you can have more, not necessarily freedom of choice, but like a broader spectrum of the direction you're going to go, right? So I have, your character maybe has less detail about your agenda, right? But Lee's character, his character is more involved with whatever the initial part of these clues are. So he has a more direction in the way he's headed, right? So it kind of allows you to sort of steer things a little bit, within some, I mean, nothing's perfect, but players are going to wreck everything anyway. So, but it gives you some control initially over.
That's a saying.
But it gives you some control over where to start things and steer them. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's where my thing comes down. Whereas if there's only going to be, say, 10 players, is there really a need to have an additional storyteller there? And either.
Right. And like in general, combat, and this is frowned upon.
Well, that it's also extremely lethal. But there's also a plan in there for if the characters die. If a character dies, there's a mechanism and other things that I have sort of in my back pocket for them to do. Mm-hmm. So it's not like if you die, you're just done for the night or whatever, right? There's going to be things for you to.
So handle if you're not.
So there will be
just like inherent things you get, and also
yes,
insanity,
right?
So is that also pretty?
So my idea is, because I have this weird obsession with these start triage tags where they tear off red, green, blue, black, or whatever, red, green, yellow, black. Is to do something similar to that. So
like
then,
on the.
Well, it will tell you sand loss or whatever, and then you'll just.
But where will it do that? Because I think that flavor about clue. If I know that this archaeology spend has a 75% chance of giving me more insanity, and I don't have any more loot.
Well, that could be. Well, that's another reason maybe to do the blacklight thing, because then you wouldn't know until you saw the symbol, and you were like, "Oh, shenanigans." Do you know what I'm saying? So you'd see it like, "Okay, cool, it's the anarchy sign." Oh, to sanity, damn it, that's not good, right?
Yeah, but if it's printed on character, I can look at an artifact and probably guess, at least narrow down to like what things it's likely to be a test of.
You're right, but at the same time you're wrong, because this isn't a game of like we're at the table and you don't want to look at it, and we're
I'm always like probably risk still a thing.
So I really think everyone will look at it. Like 90% of people will just at some point you'll be overcome by it. Even if you pick it up with you, you're gonna be like, I'm gonna. So you've seen how, and I hate to keep going back to this, but it's the only LARP experience that we have in a lot of ways, right? With the Vampire the Masquerade. We ran those games with I think up to about 12, 15, I think is where you're pushing the limit for the amount of players you can manage as one storyteller. Do you think this is feasible to...
I don't think I've ever...
I know we had it to where there was some like rotating staff storytellers. Do you know what I mean? Like where it was like, I'm the head storyteller. Okay, I run for this plot, then I take a back seat and I'll play a character and then JD step forward or whatever. But
there's a lot of tests that happen that
we won't
have.
This. Right.
And I guess some of it is too on what kind of cast of characters to have, as in, because some of it is redundancy of voice too. You know what I mean?
Okay,
like so that all of those characters feel different.
Yeah.
There's only so many characters that you can portray like differently. You know what I mean? So if you have 3 NPCs and you're voicing all of them, okay, that's probably okay. But if you have 10 NPCs and you're seeing all of them,
my goal would be to not have any NPCs other than like the house staff, like the butler or whatever it is, right? Which those are just inconsequential people. I need the butler to go do this. Okay, he goes and does it. Do you know what I'm saying? You know,
like so you're investigating Lodge?
No. So the possibility exists that one of the players would be the MacGuffin, whether they realize it or not, right? So let's just take classic Cthulhu plot, right? Ancient book. They have the Necronomicon, right? So whether they know what they actually have or not, they have an ancient book. They may know what it is, they may not, but they are the catalyst of what's going to happen. And that's where I was going to talk about with the backgrounds. You can give them more direction for what they're trying to do, right?
I guess that makes sense, but then we say that you want it to be like Babylon or like Detective, like those are shows that have a larger cast to be in these in a very clear direction, is good and is bad and working.
Right. Well,
and I don't think you get that with
there may be. So I'll give you an example of one of the Cthulhu Live scenarios that I have, right? Not the one I'm going to run, but they have, like a lot of games, they have, some of them have 2 factions, some of them have 3 factions, right? So this one takes place World War II-ish, right? Actually, it's after World War II. So one faction is a group of investigators who are the, quote, good guys, right? Trying to recover the text and lock it away in the forbidden stacks. One is a group of cultists trying to get ancient text.
So that's different. That's not like, oh, I have this book, I may or may not know what it is. That's, I'm a cultist. Oh, I'm a German nationalist, or I'm not.
Right.
Like, that's very
But those
clearly...
are all characters that are played by, those are all characters in the game that are played by players.
Okay. Well, that's not like wishy-washy, though. That's like, I'm clearly playing a bad guy.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, you know, in a way, yes.
Okay.
So that would be sort of the setup, so that it would be
there's going to be a heavy player element.
Yes, yeah.
So the confrontation may well be a big problem.
It could be, but if you think about it, if you're playing a bunch of more or less academics from Miskatonic, how much physical combat is there really going to be?
Are you a bad guy? Professors from Miskatonic?
Well, but they could be professors from wherever. Or, you know what I mean? They wouldn't necessarily be, like, if you think of your class of cultists or whatever, they're generally not forces of nature. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Plus that, in a system where you have, you know, not many hits to take.
I don't...
Yeah.
I mean, a veteran.
True. Yeah.
And either trying to have a revolution or trying to stop one.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to get hung up on that. Like, the plot is not throwing government. That's not like the core.
But at a certain point towards the end of things, when things are winding down and it's crunch time for the climax, and well,
in the climax, it's not that deal because odds are location.
Yeah.
So then it actually indicates the things. Whereas spread out, that's on arbitrary.
Right. There's some concessions that we can make too about weapons for whether they can actually be at the location too or not. So then it could just come down to a physical violence thing. How hard can you hit somebody, right? You know, and if we're going with sort of that Babylon Berlin element of it, lots of people get punched out, but you know, like no one.
I define can I find a long range rifle or something like that in this location?
You know, yeah. I thought about having some, like, you know, either some cap. I want to do cap gun because when they shoot, pop, pop, pop.
Kind of
so
revolvers.
that pop goes off.
They still make those?
I think so. If not, I'm sure I can find someone that has them or whatever. But that's something else that I want to add to it, is because those ring caps or whatever, when they go off like that 38 special style, you know, pop, 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 you know, because they have this very distinctive, like, if you're in another room and it goes off, you're like, oh, what was that? Right? You know, so it's not loud enough to cause trouble, but it's loud enough in game to realize something is happening in the other room. Right?
You know, the digital table, maybe it's set to something, you don't want a thing to happen, science or person, certain sequence, whatever, of this audio or what have you.
Could do some
or
really,
missiles.
Some really simple color change experiments too, where you have to, that's part of the clues you have to get, is things in the right order or whatever.
Well, see, it's sets, and so it's in the book, but it's a movie, and it was my favorite one. Like, they figure out, like, or whatever. It's like a
clearly the poison is in front of you.
Well, it's like a Potion Master logic puzzle.
Oh, okay.
It's really, I thought that.
I didn't read books, so I don't know. But yeah, right on. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't have a lot of answers. That's the thing, is I'm at the stage where it's like, this is a cool idea to do. We have all this wicked props and space to do this, and now I have to build a game for it with 9 characters. character. So
It's like,
just like, why
what
did
is
I come
happening
here
right now?
Yeah.
Why? What is
Well, I think once I have some things designed, I'm going to design characters with certain people kind of in mind, or maybe a couple of people.
like the character sacrifice? Like they don't know it.
That's actually one of the scenarios. One of the characters is there they get invited to this dinner party to be sacrificed. But then as the player, you get to they get sacrificed and then resurrected, and then you get to play the resurrected monster basically, which is kind of a cool.
It was really interesting about people dancing around like that ceremony with the actor guy and trying to have a seance talk to.
Oh
the lady that was murdered.
Yeah. So I don't know. What do you think in general?
I think cool.
Because I'm not going to lie, part of me is also terrified by this, but terrified in a good way. Like that nervousness motivates me. Do you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. You know, I'm driven by that. I don't.
I mean, like I have 1,000 props and fiddly day. It's like, fit in the plot that you want to run.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing is, and that's part of the problem with the plot stuff is that, and the props that, not the plot stuff, it's more of a problem with props, right? Is that a lot of the Haster stuff is more cerebral. It's not like fiddly bit. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, here's this play and ideas are a virus. Well, there's no prop for idea virus, right? You know?
But those aren't like things that you have a prop for. I mean, it's like, here's playbook. It's like, here's this journal with entries that don't make any sense. Here are the weird photographs of like the eyes cut out or whatever. Here are these culty symbols that were probably like on the stage or as part of a summoning ritual in the first place or whatever.
I don't know, I'm wrapping my head around it, but it's one of these things where I feel like
I should definitely saying like stuff cover all air or whatever. Have to be a small word. It's a lot of.
Do we want to repaint a room?
I mean, like paint the whole thing. Have a piece of wallpaper you just rip off the wall. Aha! Behind this, you see.
No, what I'm saying is we could do it and then have to paint over it when it's all done.
Right. No.
But like, okay, everybody's here for Hillcon. No one go in this room.
You get the.
No, it'll be. Okay. So do you have any other thoughts to close this one out? Do you think that I should go away from Babylon Berlin and True Detective because for any reason other than the fact that I love them and I'm trying to force them into it? Or do you...
I mean, kind of like mind-bending part of it. I think for a one-shot, you probably focus less on like the political stuff that's going in the background, though.
So the political stuff, I think, would only give, like, are you talking about Babylon Berlin?
Yeah.
So I think in that version, and specifically the political stuff that's happening, that would only give context to the character backgrounds.
Right.
Like, as far as the plot goes, it wouldn't really relevant to that other than the fact that this is the faction for whether the communists or whoever, Russian, German, whatever, right? So, it would just give context for the characters, but it wouldn't be central necessarily.
Well, and the detective, but it's kind of that classic thing. So I could see where you can maybe have a team 3 or 4 people, but having 9 people investigating something, a bit of a stretch,
Well, there would be one group of investigators, right? And then the rest of, so that whether that might be 4 people, right? But then the other 5 or so, whatever, would either be part of another faction or just be wrong place at the wrong time, but have relevant, and they're just sort of caught up in, right?
You can have the staff, the house.
Yeah.
That could be interesting. Like maybe they have a story, but on their character sheet expressed, like, please share this information if you are asked. And if this person, spends this, does this, whatever. Only charming, friendly, intimidated. Will you relinquish this info? And that could.
Well, there's some things you can do too where in the background, you always want to kind of give maybe not a whole, but like just a tip of the iceberg of it in a character's background. So that when they read it, they have something to act on initially. Right. And so what they, some of that, for some characters, I guess it could be whether they choose to share that or not, but in a one shot, everyone knows you're just trying to find allies in the job because it's a one shot. It's all conceit, for that.
I think you just go direct, like maybe all were invited here for this thing, but really, oh, surprise, you're the people doomed.
You're all just sacrificial lambs. I realize you think you're important, but in fact.
Well, not even like that. Think like 13th Ghost, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like I literally need specifically you in order to do this. And I have groomed you in order to fill this position. I needed one private investigator who was grizzled and hardened, and I needed one curious journalist.
Right. So let me ask this, because I'm going to have you help me run this down. So in terms of players that we're going to have.
But like they don't know that.
Don't realize it's their birthday.
You put their birthday on the character sheet, but everybody always blows that off like, oh, that's not relevant.
Well, you just like write it like a profile.
They're all the same.
Here's a picture. Here's like, wait, what? Today's your birthday? Today's my birthday too.
so weird.
That's weird. Yeah, because you take off. So it's just outside of Berlin. The date is June 31st, 1936. Okay, go. I was like, yeah, what? Oh, that's my birthday. Hey.
I'm 30. I'm 31. I'm 32. I'm 33. What? Weird. Coincidence.
That'd be a wicked fun thing to do. Okay, so I'm going to break this down real easy. So we have Dave not playing. Kurt, I'm writing down all of the basic. Okay, Greg. Is that everybody? Male? Oh, Lee, right? A total of 10.
Obviously.
And 7 to 3. Well, no, I wouldn't do all female cultists. Unless it was like a Salem thing or whatever, you know?
Power of 3. Come on.
Well, then the other part of it is too, and I guess I should probably ask, I think I'm going to intentionally try and structure the characters in that so you won't necessarily, like, if it was me and you on playing this game, I might structure it to where mine and your characters aren't necessarily aligned together. Not that we're like opposing one another, but we're not necessarily automatically going to be on the same side. Do you know what I'm saying? Do you think that's a good idea or no?
Good, important.
Right.
It gives you discuss, argue about, to have feelings about later when conflict comes up.
Right.
Especially like, oh, I think we should taste back deer. No, I think do this. Like, well, you rotten know-it-all, and you know that kind of thing.
So real quick, and I think we'll kind of finish this one off. I'm going to go through some big tropes here for character archetypes, right? Mm-hmm. And I want you to, with in mind, the King in Yellow game, Babylon Berlin, and True Detective. Let me know if I miss anything, right? So, detective, given, flapper girl, right? Professor, journal. I'm going to put down filmmaker because I really think the German Impressionist part with the idea of film and the King Yellow play we have. Everyman, I'm going to be better. And that's a second kind. Especially in this era, it's really kind of a early days weirdness happening, right? Anything else come right? I'm going to write down communist, right? For Babylon Berlin, you know.
Either a national or a communist.
I agree. I agree. It's just something to write down to put into context. Don't forget. I don't know. Because there's the ones
regular folk.
There's the group that supports the Kaiser or the the aristocracy.
Like a democracy.
No. There's the ones that want the Kaiser to take back over and not be a liberal democracy.
So
there's the communist. No, there's actually it's really weird. So there's the communists, which are Russian, right? Mm-hmm. Then there's the brown coats and the Nazis, the National Socialists, right? And then there's another. They don't want a Kaiser. They don't like
Kaiser.
Well, but there's the actual ones that want correct. But then there's the ones that they want the Nazi party to take over, right? But then there's another segment that wants to go back to the old ways, which was, having the Kaiser, having the old aristocracy in place. It's my terribly short. I can't remember what the term is, but yeah, fair enough.
Anyway, I think
like a faction. Yeah. No, it makes sense. But I want to write it down because I think it's important in terms of like context or background. So, and not that everyone would care, because a lot of people, some of them would just be like, I don't really care. I just want to have a nice life. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I'm loosely this, but I'm not going to go to war over it, right? You know what I'm saying? So,
Commie 5.
Right on. So, and I'm going to write an occultist, which I feel like is also a distinctly different thing because, well, no. So
it's a set of core beliefs.
No. Hang on. So there's cultists, which are part of the cult. Then there's the occultists, which like know about it, but haven't drank the Kool-Aid yet. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I have the knowledge, but not the belief. Right. So, right on. And professor can be broken down several different ways. We have like, non-Euclidean geometry, whatever, all that kind of stuff. So, okay. So I really, really like, and there's a lot of really weird, like Metropolis and Nosferatu and all these movies and stuff. And Metropolis has a lot of Haster Yellow King themes to it in a way. And I thought about having this just be a fundraising party for some lunatic filmmaker who also has tapped into the King in Yellow play. I don't disagree. Because I like the idea of just having like the movie playing on the TV, like it's just a film projector playing or whatever, Alrighty, well, like script written, or maybe it's the no, but like you could be playing the storyboards, but you could have like his previous film playing was leading up to this, right? Like look at what he's done. So I think we'll wrap this one up here, right? Is there anything else you have to close this one out, or was there anything specific, real quick, to just mention that you have that are really cool high points that you might have, or no for props? Yeah, and,
you actually had a theme,
right? Then
I think that's an ambiance,
It is true, although it's going to be August, but in the evening it will get because my plan is to probably start this around in the evening time, around supper time, and I like the idea of incorporating the meal into the game, right? So you're coming somewhere to be served, and dinner is part of the event that you're going to, right? Because it does double duty. It gets everybody fed, and then it's also a moment to be around the dinner table with everyone and talking and interacting, right? gives you a moment to get in character, get some information passed back and forth and that kind of stuff. Right on. True story. Stay on top of the hill. Alrighty, well, I think I have some stuff to work with here to start to build a plot out, and we'll see how things go. And if I need to add a storyteller, then I will. But I think I can manage it without it. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure, but I think I can. So, alrighty, well, I think we'll wrap that one up here. I hopefully maybe you all can get some inspiration out of this. I don't know. If anybody out there that listens to us has any experience with running Cthulhu LARPs or anything like that, anything that's not a vampire LARP, more of an investigative kind of thing, I would love to hear from you. So you can hit me up, James at Just One More Fix, or hit us up on our Facebook group or Twitter at Just One More Fix. I would love to hear stories and see what has worked for you and your group, because while we've ran lots and lots of LARPs and lots of tabletop Cthulhu games, we haven't ever done it as a LARP. So I would love to have some insight and draw on some experience and different moments that you have had at your games. So hit me up if you have any experience with it. And as you know, we're a member of the Gonna Geek Network, so you can head over to GonnaGeekNetwork.com and find all kinds of additional geeky podcasts and content over there to satisfy your geek podcast needs. And if you like what we do here at Just One More Fix, you can head over to patreon.com/JustOneMoreFix and support us over there and get access to our pre-shows and raw audio feeds, as well as our zine in PDF or print format, depending on what level you support us at. And join the awesome ranks of our other Patreon supporters like Alan White, Simon McNair, Alistair H., Timothy Barra, Paul Hubbard, Hector Trelane, Tiziano Furlano, and the OG Todd Olson. I think that'll do it for us this week, and we will see you all next week.
Thanks for listening. This has been an episode of Just One More Fix. Music has been provided by Kevin MacLeod. You can find him at incompetech.com. You can support us at patreon.com/JustOneMoreFix or follow us on Twitter at Just One More Fix.